and everybody who's been here this afternoon as we put a final cap on our biennial budget debate. Mr. President, this Democratic-led bipartisan budget is laser-focused on helping middle-class and working families. This budget delivers tax cuts, education funding, support for towns and cities, and increases funding for nonprofits, all areas which will benefit Connecticut families. We're accomplishing all of this progress while staying within the spending cap, paying down our long-term debt, and saving for a rainy day. Mr. President, this budget is one that makes me very proud to sit in this circle and be able to vote on today. We've certainly come a long way from years past where we had to make very difficult decisions in order to lay the groundwork to have these kinds of budgets that we've had over the last few years. Many of us have had to make difficult decisions over the years, sit in a room for many months together, but before that make some very difficult decisions, and then lay that groundwork to be where we are today. But Mr. President, again, as I'm so happy and proud to stand here in this circle, I'm so proud of where we are here in the state of Connecticut. We have people who are moving into this state because they love our state. They love the fact of what is happening here. They see the changes we are making in our long-term fiscal situation. They love many of the policies that we have voted on here in the state Senate and in the legislature over the years that are welcoming, that are inclusive. So all kinds of people are coming in to Connecticut, not just from New York, but really, frankly, from all over the country. But what they like also from this kind of a budget is they like the fact that we have a full rainy day fund, that we are paying down our long-term debt that has dogged us for 80 years, as has been said earlier, and that paying down that debt is actually giving us more funding in our operating budget, that our bond ratings are up now, which is great, and sends such a strong signal that we have tax cuts in this budget and that we're making investments in areas that are so important, Mr. President. And I'm very happy about all of those things and the fact that we have done that and continue to live within our means. Now, clearly, there are areas that are not perfect, and that has been discussed today, and certainly we understand all of that and certainly want to do better in the future. But I would say, on balance, we have worked really hard with the governor's office, with the House, and here in the Senate to put together the best budget we could under the constraints that we have, while understanding that areas like nonprofits and others certainly are going to be asking us to do more in the future. But let's look at the highlights that we have in our state budget, because these highlights are so important to the residents that we serve and who elect us every 2 years. The fact is that we're under our spending cap by $14.4 million in fiscal year 24 and $2.2 million in fiscal year 25. That we continue to phase in that ECS formula that we rewrote in 2017, which has been so important to our urban communities. That we have increased funds for excess costs. That has been one of the areas in which our Senate President has worked so hard on to help struggling communities pay for those excess costs that many times take so much funding out of education budgets. That has been such a welcome relief over the last 2 years. That as Senator Austin said, we're spending $16 million to increase eligibility for school meals to help some of our poorest kids make sure that they do not go hungry. Food insecurity is a solvable problem, Madam President, and one that funding like we have in this budget will help keep families who make sure that they are fed and those kids can learn. And so I want to thank also Senator Marr for her work on that as well. Madam President, on our school readiness and child days, we have additional funding for that as well. And I don't want to go and articulate every single point of this budget, but there are important areas. Again, as others have talked about, our rail line and Metro North restoring that funding in fiscal year 25 is going to be important. But also, as we likely will take up a housing bill later this evening, putting money in for homeless shelters for $5 million, and then $2 million in fiscal year 24 for flexible funding for housing and homeless support. That is extremely important. That we do have advocates who fight for folks who are homeless, but they do not have expensive lobbyists here at the state capitol. It's our job to help fight for them. And frankly, when we were the first state in the nation to end veterans homelessness and the second state to end chronic homelessness, I was so proud of the work that we did with under former Governor Malloy. And we need to make sure that we don't reverse ourselves. We don't go backwards on that, especially these days as housing is so expensive. So I'm really grateful for that funding as well. Madam President, we talked about supporting early voting, and we voted on a bill for that we're actually putting money towards that as well is extremely important, because the voters have said they want early voting, and now we have passed the bill, and we are actually funding that also. Funding for area agencies on aging, increased funding for adult daycare centers. Madam President, one of the first boards I ever got on as a legislator was in Norwalk, and it was an adult daycare center, and they do great work, and they save money. The money that they spend is far less than in putting a senior in a nursing home or in another place that doesn't have the flexibility that an adult daycare center does, and keeps seniors much more happy and agile and exercise, and they tend to have a much better quality of life. Our increased funding for municipalities through our tiered pilot is extremely important as well. And I would argue, Madam President, that most, if not all, communities are going to see an increase in funding in their municipal aid, their ECS funding, and they're going to have a lot to go back to their communities with. So, Madam President, I really feel that this budget is one that, while, again, no budget is ever perfect, and certainly we hear what folks have been saying, but through so much hard work, we have a budget here that invests, that gives taxpayers relief, that helps our middle class and working class families. We have the earned income tax credit that Senator Looney has been so instrumental in helping with over the years. And I'm just proud that we're able to do that here in the state of Connecticut. And again, when I go out in the community in my hometown of Norwalk, and I listen to my constituents, what they say is, we love the fact that you're finally working on those long-term issues that had been ignored for far too long, and the issues that you've tackled over the last 10 years, that those efforts have been paying off with increased bond rating, with a full rainy day fund, with paying off that long-term debt. People are moving into this state. They're happy. They like the direction that we're going in right now, and I think that is a win-win for all of us. So I just want to also just take a moment to thank some folks as well as I conclude. Certainly want to thank Senator Fonfara for his work on the Finance, Revenue and Bonding Committee, Senator Austin for her work in appropriations, Representative Walker, Representative Horn, and of course on the other side of the aisle, Senator Martin, Senator Berthel, Representative Nuccio, and Cheeseman. Also, of course, want to thank our Senate President, Senator Looney, for his steady hand at the budget and setting the direction and the priorities for us as a caucus, what a template in which to work on, and which to be able to make sure that priorities are met for caucus members and that priorities are met for our residents here in the state of Connecticut. Our Speaker, of course, our House Majority Leader, and our staff, who's worked so hard as well. Vinnie Morrow, Courtney Cullen, Ken Sicenti, Mary Marasotis, Julie Anderson, Teresa Govert, and I apologize if I missed anybody. Oh, Cutter Oliver, who's there as well. Our nonpartisan staff is OFA, OLR, our LCO, and of course our governor and lieutenant governor for their support and work as well. So on balance, Madam President, I expect this to be a strong bipartisan vote, which will send a clear and strong message on our democratically led bipartisan budget today, and I urge support of this budget. Thank you, Madam President.